What's good, everybody? It's your favorite depressed Dairy Queen worker here, back at it again to drop What If Naruto Had a Time Kekkie Genkai. And with the fact that this What If was actually posted on the community tab and you guys ended up voting for it, I decided, you know what, it was the one that I wanted to do the most anyway, other than What If Hiruzen actually trained Naruto, which I probably still will end up doing, but now I'm not too sure, seeing as not a lot of people voted for it. But you guys can let me know down below in the comment section if you guys still want it. That being said, today's video will be a sponsored one, and it will also be a totally unscripted one, seeing as I couldn't be bothered to write a script for an entire movie. So this is going to be more fanficky, and I'm kind of just going to be going off whatever feels right. So with that being said, I hope you guys do go on to enjoy today's video.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Okay, so we start our story off with, you guessed it, the birth of Naruto Uzumaki. So the way that this story is all pretty much going to start off is obviously the Nine-Tails stuff happens, Obito comes in, he ends up effing shit up in the village, and Minato is like, no, you can't do that. So he proceeds to slam a Rasengan into Obito's back, causing Obito to run off like, so, you know, he leaves. And then from there, what ends up pretty much going down is, well, Minato ends up taking Naruto to where he took him to in the original. From here, what ends up, of course, going down is Minato and Kushina would pretty much end up sacrificing their lives for a young baby Naruto. However, in this version, what ends up actually happening in this current moment in time is when Naruto is basically like crying as both of his parents just pretty much stood in front of him as a gigantic claw just pierced right through their bodies, Naruto would begin crying loudly. And from here, this is when Minato would pretty much just be holding himself right in the stomach, just like coughing out blood, and Kushina would look at her, you know, her baby Naruto, as at this point the Nine-Tails is just like standing there with his nail pretty much pierced into them, would be thinking, finally got it. As at this point, you know, what ends up pretty much happening is Naruto screams would grow louder and louder and louder until eventually a bright golden light would begin to pretty much come off of Naruto. Minato and Kushina would both look back, and this is when out of nowhere they would literally be taken back in time by like let's say 20 seconds. And it is at this moment that the Nine-Tails is currently about to come piercing in at Naruto's direction. So instead of what ends up happening last time, because all of them pretty much were able to recollect what happened, Minato this time throws a kunai, grabs baby Naruto and grabs Kushina and saves both of their lives. And from here, what ends up pretty much going down is like Minato is just shocked at what just happened. It's at this point that Hiruzen would pretty much end up arriving, be right in time, and this is when Minato and Hiruzen are basically both able to pretty much fight against the Nine-Tails, hold them off for just long enough until Minato is able to finally seal Naruto with the help of Kushina, as they both end up creating an Uzumaki level seal to seal half of the Nine-Tails within Kushina and the other half within her son Naruto. And so that would conclude the Nine-Tails incident. Now, many of you guys are probably in the comment section like, Minato and Kushina survive? Hey yo, how is this possible? Well, I mean, you can only do so many things with normal what if, so including Minato and Kushina into this, it actually ends up changing the dynamic of the entire story without changing the dynamic of the entire story. And that's going to make more sense as time goes on. But from here, what would end up happening, guys, is I can see Naruto pretty much being raised up until he's about like 2 years old, when he's able to like pretty much walk and like babble on, because he's not able to talk yet, but you know, he can like walk and stuff. But one thing that I will tell you guys about this version of Naruto is this Naruto isn't like other kids. You know what I mean? You know how other kids develop and it takes some time? This Naruto is aware of his surroundings. This Naruto is kind of like, he can piece things together, you know what I mean? Like, he can understand what his parents are saying fully, and he's going to be a little different than the original Naruto that we have in canon. And so Naruto would end up pretty much becoming 4, and on his 4th birthday, they would all be celebrating. Minato and Kushina would be in their apartment, and from here, Naruto would be blowing out the candles. It's at this point that Minato would pretty much like ask Naruto if he wants to, what he wants to do with his life. And Naruto would look up at Minato saying that he wants to become a ninja and that he wants to bring about world peace. When Minato hears that, he would be caught off guard and silence would pretty much fill up the room, as he would then ruffle up Naruto's hair and say, well, if anyone can do it, I bet it's you, little guy. As at this point, Kushina would look at Minato, smile, and they would go on to pretty much cut the cake and have a really good relaxed time. So from here, what would end up pretty much going down is Naruto would end up growing up training alongside his father, Minato, who is actually the Hokage. Now, Minato is not a DICK head, just like his son Naruto is, meaning he actually is competent enough to pretty much create a shadow clone and actually be there to help with his family, be there for Kushina, be there to train Naruto, create clones so that Naruto can train with those clones. And with that comes Minato discovering the secret of the shadow clone a lot sooner than he does in canon. However, by the time that Naruto was literally 4.5 years old, Naruto and Minato would have pretty much gotten around the Nine Tails trying to pretty much claw its way out of Naruto and stop him from using his chakra, just like he does in the original. But through like a half a year of training, Minato and Naruto are able to pretty much get past that. So 4.5-year-old Naruto is finally able to pretty much create a shadow clone jutsu. And at this time, Minato has already basically mastered the secret of the shadow clone. So from here, Naruto's training as a child would be accelerated significantly. And up until this point, none of Naruto's time abilities would ever show up again, because up until now, the only reason that Naruto would ever be able to use those abilities are in times of great distress. Because the first time he used it, he was not conscious of what he did. Minato wasn't conscious, and Kushina wasn't conscious of anything. All they know is that there was a bright glow from Naruto and stuff happened. But Minato would just chalk it up to being like some random thing that happened, because Naruto hasn't displayed any of those abilities ever since that day. So what would pretty much end up going down here is, Naruto continues training with his father. He keeps getting stronger and stronger up until the point where he finally pretty much has to go into the academy. And many of you guys are probably like, quick questions, Heather, how does his time Kekkie Genkai actually work? Well, let me explain. The way that Naruto's time Kekkie Genkai pretty much does work in this version, I'm just making this up on the spot, is pretty much I'm going to be saying that Naruto has absolute domain over a certain area. And with that, what that pretty much means is Naruto is able to pretty much stop people in time, or rewind people, or fast forward people, meaning instant kill, because he can age them up all the way till they're just like dead pretty much. And that is pretty much how that works. Like he can speed up people's ages, lower their ages, and then pause time and go back in time. So yeah, that's pretty much how Naruto's Kekkie Genkai time abilities work. However, one thing that I do want to note is Naruto's abilities do have a certain thing that comes with them. Naruto is only able to use them in a certain area, like a certain radius around himself. Because if he was to stop the entire world, that would just be completely ludicrous. So I'm going to say that he has domain over a certain area. And the area is pretty vast. Like, don't get me wrong. It's about a block. Let's say it's about I don't want to say a mile, because that's just insane, but I also don't want to say something too small. Let's say it's about the size of the area of the Nine Tails and him. Like that size, the Nine Tails and himself. Yeah, that's about how big he can control it. I don't know if that's too much or too little, but yeah, let's just go with that for now. Just keep in mind that that might change as the story goes on, depending on how I feel. But yeah, that's pretty much how this story is pretty much playing out. I really need to stop saying pretty much. But yeah, So what ends up happening here is Naruto would continue growing up until he eventually has to make his way towards the academy. And at this point, I'm just gonna say it, Naruto was literally being trained by the fourth Hokage, somebody who was a prodigy in his own right. However, Naruto, he far exceeds any of those levels that Minato had as a child, because having the abilities of the Nine Tails within himself causes Naruto's strength to be boosted up by quite a lot. So he has superhuman strength, and his healing abilities are pretty insane to say the least. So that's how Naruto's able to pretty much be strong. Not only that, but Naruto actually has access to all 5 chakra natures and is pretty much a genius in his own right. So when he does end up pretty much making it to the academy, what ends up going on here is Naruto would end up pretty much just acing through everything. Like the first year that he's at the academy would pretty much just be blown by, and Sasuke would like just take note of Naruto, because keep in mind Sasuke at this point doesn't have that same thing that happened with the Uchiha that happened in the original, where they got segregated and were like, you guys were the cause of the Nine Tails incident. That doesn't happen because Minato still is alive. So when it comes to Sasuke, he's in a much more positive light, and he doesn't really care too much about being the main center of the attention. However, he is going to be a little bit of jealous of Naruto because of just how powerful he is, and this causes Sasuke to want to train with Itachi more and more often. And because Itachi doesn't have to deal with the coup d'etat, he can actually have time to help with his brother's training. But seeing as it's a little Sasuke, not much is actually going to be done, to be honest. So just take Sasuke's training with Itachi with a grain of salt. So what ends up essentially going down from here is Naruto and Sasuke would pretty much fast forward all the way until the final day of the academy. And at this point, Naruto has actually become far more powerful. He has grown in size, and Naruto actually learned an ability from his father Minato that Naruto didn't really end up thinking of using. Minato taught Naruto how to pretty much put chakra into things that he uses to fight. And so with that, Naruto decided that he was going to pretty much use weapons to his advantage. So Naruto not only fights with his hands, but Naruto actually fights with a sword. He uses an underhand grip whenever he's fighting and messing around, but when he takes it seriously, he of course switches to the normal grip, which is, one-handed style, where he just comes in and starts effing stuff up, you know what I mean? So yeah, Naruto is pretty powerful at this moment. And so with that, what we can pretty much have happen here is Naruto would end up pretty much kind of getting to know a lot of the people in his class. And Naruto would actually be quite popular, but Naruto wouldn't really pay that much attention because he's not really focused on pleasing everyone else. He just wants his father's approval. And Naruto has always kind of had it. So he's more of a Kakashi type character where he's like, yep. And, he's just told that he's great all the time. But Naruto's like, it doesn't matter what you think. It just matters what my father thinks. So that ends up happening. Oh, and also one more thing I want to mention. Kakashi has actually trained Naruto on numerous occasions. And this version of Naruto actually ends up learning, wait for it, the Rasengan. He already knows the Rasengan. Not only that, but Naruto has actually learned the Chidori as well. But the thing is, Naruto, when he ended up pretty much learning the Chidori, he ended up finding out real quick that drawback that it has when you don't have a Sharingan. So Naruto ended up pretty much creating his own different jutsu, which is the purple lightning blade that Kakashi ended up making in Boruto. So that just shows you how much of a genius this version of Naruto is. He's a lot different than our usual canon Naruto, who's goofy and trying to get the attention of others. In this version, he's trained by the literal fourth Hokage, Kakashi. On occasion, even Hiruzen ends up training him when it comes to chakra control. So you tell me how powerful you think a kid like that's gonna get. And Naruto is in touch with his Uzumaki lineage, because Kushina at this moment is currently trying to teach Naruto how to manipulate his Uzumaki chains. So he is very, 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 very powerful at this point. And the only time that Naruto at this point has pretty much used his time abilities is one time when Naruto was pretty much just touching plants. He's walking through a forest and noticed one flower that hadn't quite grown. So he put his hand on it, and he thought he was putting chakra into it because he thought that that might help it grow. But instead, when Naruto lifted his hand, it was fully blossomed. And Naruto had always found that quite interesting, but he's not quite able to replicate that feeling. So for the next couple of years, Naruto is going to be like, I wonder how that works. He's doesn't remember the feeling, but soon enough, guys, he will be remembering that feeling. Quite well, in fact. So, to keep this story going, what ends up essentially going down is they all get to their final exam day and they all have to create the multi-shadow clone jutsu. However, when it comes to Naruto's shadow clone, it would pretty much just poof, like right in the middle of class, and what's it called, Iruka would be like, Naruto's not here. Again, as at this point, Naruto would literally be outside sparring with one of his good friends, Sasuke, one of the only people who he can actually consider a little bit of a friend. And this whole stuff of Naruto and Sasuke being friends ended up happening about, let's say, 7 months ago. They both ended up getting a lot closer, and so Minato and Fugaku ended up pretty much squashing the beef. So this, like, Naruto having a time Kekkie Genkai, other than the fact that he's going to be broken, also leads to Konoha just being in like a much greater state. And seeing as Minato isn't quite the same as Hiruzen, where he really cares about what Danzo has to say, Minato does take note of all the shady things that Danzo does in the village. So Minato would tell Danzo that if he continues with the way that he's pretty much doing things and leaking information, he will like not hesitate to pretty much kill him. Like he would tell Danzo straight up, you're not getting kicked out of the village, you're not getting put in prison, Minato will like just kill you. So Danzo is pretty much like on the back foot, and he knows he's not gonna pretty much take stuff the way that Hiruzen does. Because I know a lot of people might think that, oh, Minato's not like that, it's not in his character. But Minato has a very bloodlusted fighting style, where he doesn't really like to waste time and he gets straight to the point. As we can see with the way he fights. When Minato fights, he doesn't come in with a couple of punches, no. He uses Flying Raijin, immediately slits people's throats, and just keeps going. So that's pretty much one of the qualities that I admire about Minato. One thing I will mention is Naruto is currently in the process of trying to learn the Flying Raijin, but that jutsu is a little more difficult than the others, so it's taking him a little bit more time. However, the thing that Naruto mainly focuses all of his time and efforts into is Kenjutsu, or the art of fighting with a sword, because that's the one thing that Naruto thinks is just so, like, he likes it a lot because it's something that, like, not just somebody with chakra can learn, but anybody. It's something that anybody can get good at. So Naruto will always have competition when it comes to that. So yeah, Naruto is pretty strong, and when it comes to Team 7, I'm gonna just state that that team would pretty much stay just like it does in the original. Trash Bag, Sasuke, and Naruto are all on the same team, with their sensei being Kakashi. Now, when Kakashi ends up pretty much telling them how to introduce themselves, Sasuke doesn't end up saying, I want to kill a certain someone. He ends up saying that he wants to become a powerful shinobi and surpass a certain someone. Naruto says that he wants to bring about world peace and become the strongest shinobi there ever was. And Sakura says, So yeah, with that said, Kakashi ends up telling everybody, don't eat. And then pretty much poofs out of there. After this, Naruto would look at Sasuke and be like, yo, Sasuke, do yourself a favor, eat tomorrow. Don't eat too much, but just eat something. Get something in your stomach. You're gonna need it. As he then walks off with his hands in his pockets and then proceeds to body flicker off of that building and just run on top of rooftops until he finally gets into his room and slides up the window, climbing into his room. As at this point, Kushina would actually be cleaning Naruto's room, and she would be like, what did I tell you about coming in through the window? She smacks this man on the top of the head with her knuckles, and then Naruto's like, mom. And she's like, we have a front door. Naruto would be like, yeah, sorry. As Kushina would then be like, can never stay mad at you. She would kiss this man on the forehead, and then Minato would come into the room, being like, hey, I got us some ramen tonight. Naruto would be like, sweet, as he would go in and all of them would chow down. Minato would have definitely gone to Naruto's favorite shop, Ichiraku. And when it comes to that, Minato would have actually helped Ichiraku a lot with his shop, helping him build a proper shop, something that's a lot nicer than what he has in canon, because it's his son's favorite, pretty much place. So yeah. And when it comes to the Hidden Leaf Village, they're pretty much as strong as they've ever been, because under the leadership of Minato, this village and its shinobi have just thrown leaps and bounds. So when it comes to other villages being like, yo, like what's going on, one thing that would slowly start developing is the other great nations taking notice of how powerful the Hidden Leaf Village is growing. So that might just become a problem later on, but we'll get to that bridge when we get to that bridge. So with that all being said, what ends up happening here is we're just going to be skipping over to the next day where they all pretty much have the bell test. Now, I'm not going to bore you guys with the part of Kakashi arriving late, just know he does, but then he ends up explaining everybody what the bell test is and how to pass. And Naruto would simply tell Sasuke not to worry, they'll definitely pass. As it's at this point, Kakashi would pretty much just smile under his mask, and immediately as soon as he says go, he would lift this headband, revealing his Sharingan. From here, Sasuke would see Kakashi's Sharingan and wonder why he has that, but he would rush in with Naruto nonetheless. Naruto would immediately create 2 shadow clones as he would jump up into the air and aim his legs backwards and immediately create a Chidori type jutsu, as both of his clones would pretty much hit the back of his feet and shoot gale palms into him, causing Naruto to be sent flying at top speeds. He would come in at Kakashi and throw the blade, but Kakashi would jump up into the air, and it's at this point that Naruto would smile, as Kakashi would be coming right back down to the floor, but Naruto would appear from the ground and grab Kakashi's legs and yank him down into the ground. As at this point, Naruto would say checkmate, and Kakashi would say look again, as Naruto was caught in a genjutsu, and at this current moment, he had pretty much just gotten kicked right into the ground. Naruto would get right back up by pretty much kicking himself back onto his feet, as Sasuke would come in and say, triple fireball jutsu, going as 3 gigantic fireballs would come in out of nowhere at Kakashi's direction. He would immediately at this point say, water style, water dragon jutsu, as immediately a gigantic water dragon would come in, or no, not water dragon. He would say mud wall jutsu, as a gigantic wall of mud would appear and would cover Kakashi's left side. At this point, Sakura would pretty much just be sitting there like, what do I do? But she would just rush in and think, I have to help them out. So from here, she would come running in and throw a bunch of kunai at, Kakashi's direction. And when Kakashi sees these kunais coming at him, he would think, yeah, I'm going to take her out. So he would just look at her and she falls into a genjutsu, screams, Sasuke, no! And then just passes out. And from here, what ends up pretty much happening after this is like Kakashi just looks at her and is just like, really? But everybody else just looks at Kakashi and is like, all right, we got to take him down. Sasuke would be like, yeah. As from here, Sasuke would just close his eyes and open them back up, as immediately a Sharingan would be revealed, and Naruto would stand there as he would create a bunch of jutsu saying, no, not a bunch of jutsu, but a bunch of shadow clones saying, multi-shadow clone jutsu, as he creates a bunch of himself, and a bunch of them use the transformation to turn into Sasuke, as they all run into each other and they would start mixing each other up, trying to confuse Kakashi, but seeing as he has a Sharingan, Naruto already knew it wouldn't work, but he would then rush in and use numbers against Kakashi, to which Kakashi would create 4 clones, and from here, they would all pretty much proceed to decimate Naruto. But it's at this point that Naruto would jump up into the air, and 5 of him would pretty much leap into the air as it would say, fire style, lightning style, wind style, earth style, and water style, as all of them would just shoot gigantic jutsus right into Kakashi's direction, creating a vortex tornado like of all of the elements, and Kakashi would just be like, all right. As at this point, Minato was watching this whole thing play out, and he's just like, yep, hopefully Kakashi can dodge that one, as he's just smiling watching what's going down. But Kakashi was slightly able to dodge with minor injuries, actually pretty heavy injuries, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. And from here, Naruto would rush in at Kakashi's direction and try to snag the bells. and he successfully does so, throwing both of them at Sasuke and Sakura's direction, saying, "You guys go ahead without me. I'll just stay in the academy one more year." As Kakashi would be like, you pass. As Naruto would just like be like, "Yeah, I expected nothing less." As at this point, Naruto would say, "You got pretty lucky, Kakashi sensei. Any more and I would have had to use my sword over here." As Kakashi just remembers the last time that he had to fight against Naruto when he was truly going all out. He would pretty much rub his back and feel the gigantic scar that he has on his just back, because Naruto ended up cutting, like pretty much slashing Kakashi's back, like a whole clean cut on his back. So Kakashi definitely knows how powerful Naruto is. And from here, instead of this team pretty much having their time wasted, Minato wouldn't even end up having them do those E rank or D rank missions, immediately opting to tell them that they're going to be carrying out a B rank mission. Because seeing as Naruto's pretty much already more powerful than Kakashi, Sasuke is pretty, talented on his own, and Sakura is just like garbage. So, it kind of evens everything out. But what would end up happening here is all of them would end up essentially being told, "Yep, you guys are going to have this old man pretty much get to the land of the mist." And from here, all of them would watch as a drunken man named Tazuna would enter and be like, "These are the people supposed to be escorting me. I'm Tazuna," you know what I mean? Like, he's drunk. And everybody would just be like, "Okay." As from here, Naruto would stay back in the Hokage's office and be like, "Hey Pops, what do you say we continue that flying Raijin training?" As Minato would say, "Sure, Naruto." He would create a clone, and from here, they would go to a secluded area, the same spot that Naruto learned the Rasen Shuriken in. And as Naruto is pretty much trying to, learn his like flying Raijin jutsu and master it, Minato at this point, since he has more time, is trying to train in order to master his own jutsu, the Rasen Shuriken. And on this day, Minato finally masters it. The Rasen Shuriken jutsu was mastered by the 4th Hokage before his son was able to do it in this version. So yeah, that's a pretty good little thing that ends up happening here. But that's pretty much what ends up happening in terms of the introduction to the story of, what if Naruto would have time Kekkie Genkai. So with all of that said, what ends up pretty much occurring here is I'm just going to skip on to when they're in the mission, and I'm not even going to be covering the Demon Mist Brothers stuff because it's boring. We all know what would go down. Oh, and by the way, in case you guys are wondering, what happens with Mizuki? Does he end up trying to steal the Scroll of Sealing? He does, and it doesn't work out very well. Minato, using Hiruzen's crystal ball, it just sees all this going down and is like, "No, you can't do that." He teleports to one of his flying Raijin markers and he takes Mizuki out personally. And by personally, I mean he pretty much ends Mizuki's subscription to life. And so what ends up happening here is, well, I mean, what do you guys think what happens? They just all end up going on the mission. And since I'm skipping the Demon Brother portion, they walk for about 2 hours until eventually a thick mist would come in out of nowhere, and all of them would watch as a man would pretty much throw a blade at their direction. All of them would duck, with the only late reactor being Sakura, and she barely misses the blade because Sasuke grabs her and throws her on the ground. But from here, Zabuza would pretty much jump on top of the blade and say, "Kakashi Hatake." As, Kakashi just looks at Zabuza and says, "Naruto." Naruto would immediately grab his blade from his back and say, "A sword? A sword wielder?" As Naruto would look at Kakashi and say, "Hey Kakashi, think I can take this one by myself?" Kakashi would immediately look at Naruto and be like, "Go for it." As from here, Naruto would look at Kakashi and be like, "Alright, perfect." As from here, Naruto would create a bunch of hand signs, creating his lightning blade, kind of like the one that Sasuke does, and in Sasuke fashion would coat the blade with lightning chakra. As from here, he would rush in at Zabuza's direction, and Zabuza would use his blade to try to block Naruto's sword. However, it's at this point that Naruto would hold up a hand sign, and immediately a bunch of Narutos would appear in the air as they come down with their very own blades and pretty much try to slash Zabuza. However, it's at this point that Zabuza would pretty much hold his blade out to block most of the brunt force of the slashes, but Naruto would end up cutting Zabuza in like pretty various directions. And seeing that Zabuza is pretty much struggling this early on against a kid, Haku, who's watching very nearby, would be like, yep, I gotta go help my master Zabuza. So Haku would end up pretty much coming in and being like, yo, I'm gonna help you. Zabuza would be like, Haku, I don't need your help. But from here, Naruto would say, really? Because it looks like you do, as he would pretty much rush in at Zabuza with more and more ferocity after each strike. Naruto would jump up into the air and say, and like pretty much slam his sword down, as simultaneously he would yell, Rasengan! As, yeah, Naruto is pretty much quite gifted when it comes to being a ninja. From here though, Zabuza's body would turn into water, as Zabuza would pretty much crawl out from the water beneath and say, you know what, kid? You almost got me there. I'm not gonna lie to you. He would then look at Haku and say, Haku, now! As from here, Haku would proceed to pretty much freeze the entire lake. Like the entire lake, it gets frozen by one of Haku's jutsus. And at this point, the floor would actually catch Sakura and Tazuna off guard with the way that it's frozen. From here, Zabuza would lunge at Tazuna's direction, pretty much thinking that this is going to be pretty much the best option that he has, and he would rush in at Zabuza with max speed with full intent to kill. However, Sasuke would come in and kick Zabuza off of him, as at this point Naruto was a sigh of relief, but at this moment, Haku was just like, you hurt master, and for that, you die. As he would say, crystal mirrors, and a bunch of mirrors would appear out of nowhere, as Naruto would end up essentially like being put in the middle of all of the mirrors that Haku would create. And this time, Haku isn't going to be playing any games. He's not going to be sitting here like, oh my god, I'm going to mess around with this kid. No, he just comes in and immediately starts zooming around the mirrors, throwing Senbon at top speeds. A couple of them would pierce right into Naruto's legs, as Naruto would scream out in pain, saying, ah, as he would then close his eyes and say, fine, if this is how we're playing, as he would create a gigantic fireball, and it would have no effect on the mirrors. It would cause them to melt slightly, but Naruto would notice that he would need way more power to take this out. So at this point, Naruto would think what to do. But Haku would just be coming in so fast that Naruto literally has no time to react. And Naruto at one point would be thinking, no. As at this point, Naruto would just keep being rushed at by Haku, as Naruto would think, how could I have let myself my guard down like this? If I would have never let my guard down, I would have won. From here, Naruto would pretty much begin thinking like, I could have. And from here, Naruto would say, damn it! As from here, literally Haku would stop mid-air, and Naruto would think, huh? As he would look around and see Kakashi and everyone else still fighting against Zabuza. But he would look at Haku once more, and Haku was frozen in place. Naruto would look at Haku's direction and say, it's strange. As he would place his hand on Haku and think, close his eyes strongly, as he wishes to pretty much get rid of Haku. And at this point, he would see as Haku slowly ages in time, and then faster and faster, as Haku's entire body would pretty much wither away into dust. Naruto would see what he just did and would think, amazing. As from here, Naruto would just be like, that's insane. Like, thinking about the power that he just pretty much displayed, it's incredible. It's unheard of, actually. Not only is it incredible, but it's just no one else has ever done anything like that, ever. So Naruto is just completely thrown aback. So what ends up pretty much occurring here is Naruto this time remembers the feeling. He remembers what it feels like to stop time in this very moment. However, I think it's about a good time for me to take a quick break from the story, go do some IRL stuff, come back later, record again. So yeah, you guys will be seeing me again, and yeah. So after Naruto pretty much finishes taking out Haku, what ends up happening from here is Kakashi and Sasuke were both able to subdue Zabuza. Now Zabuza at this moment would have pretty much seen Haku just die and would think, you failed. From here, Naruto would proceed to walk over towards Zabuza's direction, as Kakashi would simply say Chidori, as he would smash a Chidori right into Zabuza's heart, causing Zabuza's body to fall onto his knees and then fall onto the ground limp. He was dead. From here, what would end up pretty much happening is the team would end up escorting Tazuna back to his house, and this is where Kakashi would pretty much end up passing out like completely for about, let's say, 3 days. Now the reason that I'm saying 3 days and not a week or 2 weeks is because this version of Kakashi is a lot stronger than our normal one. He's a lot more used to using the Sharingan, because in this version Minato stayed alive and Minato was always there to keep Kakashi on his toes, aka to keep Kakashi from going soft. So this version of Kakashi is actually able to recuperate in about 3 days, meaning that he has more stamina, not exactly more strength. His strength is basically on par with normal Kakashi, but it's definitely a helping hand when it comes to, you know, that little thing that he has of extra stamina. So what ends up pretty much occurring from here is, how do I explain this? Kakashi would pretty much Kakashi, my guy. No, oh, okay, I need to stop that. Seriously, back to the story. Kakashi would pretty much end up waking up, and from here would go on to explain water walking and tree walking to Sakura, because Sasuke and Naruto both are already well into learning the chakra basics and control of all that stuff. So what ends up instead occurring here is they end up pretty much helping Tazuna build the bridge and enjoying a lot of Tsunami's food for the time being. And so what ends up pretty much happening is they're all having a great time, honestly. Like, none of them are really experiencing any too rough conditions. Naruto, however, during this whole time is pretty much simply trying to remember that feeling that he had. What Naruto thinks at this moment is pretty much inner monologue. Naruto at this moment is pretty much thinking in his mind. And if I can put this in the picture for you guys, have you guys ever like done something and you're just like, yo, like how did I do that? And you're pretty much trying to do it again, but it's really hard to do it again because it was more of like a one-time thing. But if you really did try, you ended up like picking it up. Like I don't have an example, but I'm pretty sure many of you guys would already pick up what I'm trying to say. So with that said, and my little example out of the way, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I had to stop the recording. A lot of noise in the background. But anyways, so like I was saying, they pretty much end up helping Tazuna rebuild the bridge, and no, not rebuild, but build the bridge, and Gato's men would of course end up arriving. Now, when Gato's men do arrive, it's not like they're arriving to a team 7 that just got done with the battle, and this might be like even a little bit of a task for them. This is literally like walking a dog in a park. So when all of them like just see Gato's men and a bunch of mercenaries with like weapons there, they would just look at them and be like, all right, all of you have 5 seconds to get lost. And from here, they would be like, you in what army? And from here, Sasuke, Naruto, Kakashi would all proceed to create a bunch of shadow clones, and Trash Bag would also create about 4 shadow clones herself, holding kunais in front of her and surrounding Tazuna. From here, this is when all of the villagers would pretty much walk over towards the bridge, and all of Gato's mercenaries would be like, and this is the part where we leave, as they proceed to jump in the water and pretty much scram. And at this point, Gato's just standing there like, you cowards, as he would just look, and immediately as soon as he looked forward, he would see Kakashi standing in front of him, as he would say, hey there. As you know, at this point, Kakashi's just like, so I believe you owe something to these people. He would grab Gato as he would throw them in the middle of all the villagers, And what these villagers would do to Gato is so gruesome that I can't even put it into words what they pretty much do. Just know it rhymes with porcher. It rhymes with um okay, porcher, okay? That's not even a real word, but you know what I'm trying to say, okay? You guys pick it up. So yeah, that ends up pretty much going down. And from here, what ends up essentially happening is all of them pretty much end up grabbing their things. The bridge would still be named the Great Naruto Bridge. And from here, they would all make their way back to the Hidden Leaf Village. During that time that they were pretty much not doing anything, Naruto would describe that feeling of what he did with time as a slight tingle in his back. And it was like a tingling feeling in his back, in his spine, all the way to his like brain, like his nervous system. So that's pretty much what Naruto could describe it as. And this whole time, Naruto has been trying to pretty much replicate that same feeling. It's something that Naruto has been trying to essentially learn how to get full control of. But it is going to be taking a lot more time, because this isn't something like a jutsu that other people have already mastered and he can pretty much just mimic them or copy them. This is something that he exclusively has and is going to have to figure out for himself. But he is a genius and he does have a lot of shadow clones, so trust me guys, he's going to be learning how to master this time Kekkie Genkai very, very soon. So with all that out of the way, by the end of the Land of the Waves mission, they would all end up reporting to Lord Fourth, Naruto's father. Now when they end up getting in there, they would all basically receive their pay for a B rank mission, and it's at this point that Minato would walk over towards Naruto and congratulate him for yet another mission well done. Because this isn't Naruto's first rodeo. Naruto has gone on a couple undercover missions with the Anbu before, because his father is Minato, not the dark Anbu, the one that Danzo was in charge of, but like the light one. So Naruto has done a couple of those missions, and Naruto would pretty much say, yeah, of course. From here, this is when we would pretty much have what's it called, Sasuke end up going home. Now when Sasuke goes home, he would end up finding out some pretty bad news. His brother is sick. All right, his brother is pretty sick. Like, it's not a little bit, it's the same condition that he has in canon, and it's causing Itachi to pretty much start being sluggish and have less chakra. So Naruto would think that they're definitely going to be needing somebody to check it out. They would end up trying to check out Itachi's sickness, but they're not actually able to diagnose it. And so Sasuke would pretty much be a little down during these next couple of days that are about to happen, aka the Chunin exams. But yeah, that's pretty much what ends up happening in terms of that. And from here, they're all essentially going to be informed about the Chunin exams, with Minato, of course, being informed of Naruto's latent abilities, these abilities of time manipulation. It's at this point that Minato would end up pretty much like telling everybody to leave, and Minato would begin to tell Naruto about the day of the Nine Tails incident, telling him about what happened, how he and Kushina should have died that day, but he has a feeling that Naruto actually was the one that saved them. Naruto, hearing these words from his father, would think, did I really do that? And Minato would begin to explain to Naruto that he doesn't know how or when he ended up getting these abilities, but all he knows is that this is a gift and something that Naruto should use well, because with great power comes great responsibility. Quote from Minato Namikaze, totally not from anybody else, okay? Trust me. Anyways, with that said, what ends up occurring from here is what ends up occurring here is had a yawn snuck up on me. I mean, it's partially probably because I'm literally laying in bed as I'm recording this, so it makes sense that I'm over here yawning. But that aside, what ends up occurring from here is they're all pretty much informed about the Chunin exams, with all Team 7 accepting, and then we're going to pretty much just time skip to when they finally end up making their way towards the Chunin exams tower. Now, when Team 7 enters the building, of course, the first thing that they would all notice is the Genjutsu being placed by a couple of Chunin. Now, immediately, all of Team 7 is able to dispel this, even Sakura, because, she has a pretty good adept feeling for Genjutsu, except when it comes down to something about Sasuke, because she tends to believe anything and everything her babe Sasuke has to say. Now, with that said, they end up walking in, and when they do, they ignore the Genjutsu, thinking that this is some like literal Genin, like baby Genin level Genjutsu. Like this wouldn't fool anybody. But they continue walking, and this is when Team Guy would approach them. Now Neji, Tenten, and Lee would walk towards their direction, as Lee would look at Sasuke up and down and challenge Sasuke to a fight. Now, Sasuke looking at Lee would be like, nah, I'm good. And Lee would pretty much end up throwing a kick, to which Sasuke would end up barely having to, would end up pretty much dodging. No, not dodging, but blocking with his forearm. He would extend his forearm out, and when Lee kicks it, like Sasuke's forearm gets a hell of an impact on it, and Sasuke has to put his other arm in place so that like his arm literally doesn't snap. So when Sasuke feels how powerful this boy's kicks are, he would think, Jesus, this guy's strong. And from here, Sasuke would kind of like get into like a smug look, as he would think, yeah, just what I need. Naruto, however, thinking about things analytically, would be like, Sasuke, we're gonna need our energy for this Chunin exams. My dad told me that, so I think it's best if you were to fight him in the Chunin exams. Don't you think so? And at this point, Sasuke would say, you know what? It's a good idea, Naruto. They would proceed to walk in, and it's at this point that Neji would look at Naruto that whole time. They were both pretty much staring at each other, thinking, huh, that's gonna be fun. Naruto, because of the fact that he's heard about the dojutsus of the Hyuga clan, and Neji, simply because he likes to think about everybody else as beneath him, when in reality, that is not the case. But what ends up essentially occurring here is they all end up going in to take the little exam, and I'm going to completely skip it because it's irrelevant. But just know Team 7 passes, everyone else in the original passes, and we end up going outside. Anko at this point is explaining the rules and making everybody sign these waivers, saying that they are not liable if they lose or die, which they most likely will. Everybody would sign these papers, and the scene with Naruto not paying attention and Anko throwing a kunai at him would never happen. So instead, the little weird first encounter with Orochimaru that the group has never ends up going down, and so the entire team is all pretty much able to go inside the forest of death and pretty much just rush into it. Naruto's game plan is as deep into the forest as they possibly can and make their way towards the Chunin Tower. As all of them would do so, Naruto would look at Sakura and Sasuke and say, let's go. They would say, right. And from here, all of them would end up pretty much making their way towards the Chunin Exams Tower. Now, when they're pretty much halfway there, a gigantic snake would come in out of nowhere, breaking countless amounts of trees and rushing at Sasuke and the whole team's direction pretty much. Now, the snake would come in out of nowhere, and Naruto, having a quick reaction, would immediately slice the snake's head off, and they would continue going in through the forest. They would jump about 2 more trees in distance, and this is when a man would stand in front of them, this being a grass village shinobi. Now, when the team sees this grass village shinobi, or the disguise that Orochimaru had, they would all immediately be like, get out of our way. As Naruto would say, this is a perfect chance for all of them to get the scroll that they need. And Sasuke would look at this man and be like, yeah, like he's giving off nothing but danger. So Sasuke would pretty much proceed to grip his kunai tightly and think, this guy's unlike anything we've ever encountered. He would begin to tremble a little bit with his arm, and Naruto would hold his hand out in front of Sasuke saying, stop. As at this point, the man would proceed to literally just smile, and at this point, he would say, Sasuke, how I've waited for this moment. At this point, Sasuke would just be sitting there, and Orochimaru would say, young Uchiha body, the son of Fugaku, this is gonna be perfect. At this point, Sasuke is pretty much just like just like, what's going on? And Naruto would look at Orochimaru as he's like, yep, I'm done. Immediately, Naruto would say, Sasuke, grab Sakura and get out of here. Sasuke would say, no, I'm not leaving you, Naruto. And from here, Naruto would say, that's an order. As he would say, get out of here now. Sasuke would say, fine. As he would say, but you better come back alive. And Naruto would say, don't doubt it, Sasuke. Orochimaru would create a barrier in front of Sasuke as he would say, and just where do you think you're going? As Naruto would then rush in at Orochimaru's direction, saying, don't get in his way. Immediately, Naruto would pretty much create hand signs as a bunch of like chains would come out of Naruto's back. Now, these chains would pretty much rush at Orochimaru's direction, and they would pretty much continue chasing Orochimaru until they would hold a tight grip on him. Now, Orochimaru at this point would open his mouth as wide as it can go, and a copy of him would literally slither out. Naruto, seeing this, would think that's disgusting, and from here, Naruto would say, fine, water devastation jutsu, as a huge flood of water would come in out of nowhere, flooding the ground, causing the trees to be the only spot that they can pretty much land their feet on. And Naruto would proceed to have a pretty good idea. He's going to take Orochimaru out with one fell swoop. Naruto would create a Chidori in his hand, or a lightning blade, and he would shove it into the water, causing the water to start conducting the electricity. From here, he would take out his sword with the same hand and engulf the blade with lightning chakra. As Naruto would say, and now for a little bit of a thing that I've been working on for a little bit now. He would proceed to close his eyes as he would open them once more, and it would be revealed that Naruto has a lightning chakra cloak around himself. Orochimaru's eyes would widen as he would think, that's the Raikage's jutsu. As at this point, Naruto would appear behind Orochimaru and hit him in the back of the head with the Raikage's jutsu. Or no, not the Raikage's jutsu, but hit him in the back of the head, causing Orochimaru to go flying into the water. However, before Orochimaru hits it, Orochimaru would be able to react and pretty much kick off of the air, like literally kick off of the air, by creating a little pocket hole for him to pretty much step on, and then like landing on a tree, thinking, you're a powerful one, but not quite fast enough. As Orochimaru would appear behind Naruto with all of his strength, all of his bloodlust just going all over the place, Naruto would feel fear tingle down his back for the first time in his life. And as Orochimaru would pretty much like stand behind Naruto, he would literally proceed to lick Naruto's neck, thinking, Minato-san, it's gonna be fun to kill you. Or maybe I should experiment on you. Naruto's eyes would start flashing from red to blue as he would just be breathing hard. Like, he's like, that was my strongest like attack. Like, what am I supposed to do against this guy? And Orochimaru would just be sitting there like, just maniacally breathing on Naruto's neck while a creepy smile would go down his face. Naruto would just be thinking, what do I do? And at this point, Naruto would look down as he pretends to pretty much be defenseless. He would begin to act as if he's more scared than he truly is, and Orochimaru would pretty much begin to wrap around Naruto's body. As Naruto at this point would say, please work. At this point, Naruto would pretty much reverse time to before Orochimaru pretty much grabbed him, and Naruto would appear before Orochimaru as he would stab the blade right into Orochimaru's gut and then cut him in half. As Orochimaru begins pretty much falling onto the ground, Orochimaru would begin turning into mud-like substance and disappear, as Naruto would think, that was close. At this point, Naruto would proceed to run on top of all the treetops, and he would finally make his way towards Sakura and Sasuke. Now, when they're really close to the Chunin Tower, they would end up seeing a random team, and luckily this team would have the exact scroll that they need to pass. So they end up pretty much arriving there, and they end up pretty much taking them out swiftly without, hurting them too badly, and then taking their scroll from them and entering the Chunin Tower. Sasuke does not get bit by Orochimaru in this version of events, and when Itachi hears about what Orochimaru did to him, ooh, that's gonna be a fun thing to cover. Yeah, so pretty much that ends up happening here, and they end up being pretty much told by Kakashi that, you know, they did good, but that they're unfortunately going to be having to wait for the rest of the contestants to pretty much end up passing. So they end up staying there for about 3 more days, and Minato gets word that Naruto actually ended up breaking his very own record. But Naruto would end up pretty much telling Minato that they were not alone in that forest. A man was there. Now, when Minato hears this, he would think someone was there, and Naruto would say, yep, someone was there. It was Orochimaru. Minato would take note of this and say that, how would you know? Naruto would say, I've read a couple of textbooks on the legendary Sannin, and that man was exactly like what they describe him like in those books. He was with a disguise. I believe it was a transformation jutsu, maybe even more. I don't know, but all I know is his power was incredible. From here, Minato would simply look at his son and say, you fought Orochimaru and made it out alive. He would look at his son and say, you know, I'm pretty proud of you for that. Not too many shinobi could say that they fought against the great Orochimaru and lived to tell the story. And Naruto would proceed to pretty much be like, yeah, it was a hard fought battle. Not even sure if I was able to truly survive because of myself or because he let me. But either way, I'm not gonna die today. As from here, Minato would just look at his son and say, all right, yeah. As pretty much everybody else finally ends up making it towards the tower, and Sasuke and Naruto were pretty much allowed to leave the Chunin exams area. That they have to get there in about 2 days, and they would end up leaving to do their own endeavors. Sasuke would end up telling his brother Itachi that they encountered a man by the name of Orochimaru in the forest, and that he was after Sasuke. Now, after Itachi hears that somebody was trying to pretty much take his younger brother and like kill the kid, Itachi is just like, nope. He would immediately proceed to put on his Anbu outfit, and without even telling anybody, he would immediately arrive before Minato in his office, asking to pretty much go take care of Orochimaru. Now, Orochimaru and Itachi is gonna be too easy of a battle. But at this point, Minato would be like, you know what? Sure thing. He would actually give him a kunai and tell him that he will be teleporting to him in about 1 hour or in about 1 day if he doesn't make it back. And Itachi would say, understood. From here, Itachi would body flicker out of there, and thus Itachi's mission to take out Orochimaru would begin. But at the same time, this is when we would cover a more important mission. Naruto going shopping with his mother for some groceries. Okay, and with that said, it's now time for a quick commercial break. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let Sellout Zether do his thing and tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video. Have you ever wanted some drippy anime merch? Well, then go down below to my link in the description where you guys can find some of the dopest anime merch in the game. You can use it to flex on your friends, flex on your grandma, flex on your parents, pretty much anybody you know, and let them know that you're the sauciest anime tard there is. So using the link in my description, you guys can get to the website called Fandom where they sell a bunch of anime merch, and you guys can even use my discount code Zether for 10% off their already affordable merch. On screen, you guys should be seeing a bunch of examples of the things that Fandom has to offer. So if you dig anything that's up on screen, then definitely make sure to go check Fandom out and let them know I sent you their way. That being said, back to the video. So I'm going to be picking off the what if right where we'd left off on a very new important arc. This being shopping with Mama Uzumaki. So Naruto and Kushina would end up walking into a I'm totally kidding, guys. We're not going to cover that. So obviously, you know, Itachi's pretty much looking for Orochimaru, pretty much finding his tracks, and at this current moment, Orochimaru was pretty much beginning to discuss a deal with the Hidden Sand to pretty much end up eradicating the Leaf Village because they've grown way too powerful, as they put it. So from here, what ends up pretty much going down is, the Kazekage of the Sand Village is just like, I'm game. Like, I'm down. Like, I'll help take out the Hidden Leaf Village. I hate them just as much as you do. So he would end up pretty much agreeing this time because of the fact that, he doesn't like the fact that the Leaf Village is growing way too much in power day by day. And that if they don't take them down sooner or later, that the Leaf will become too powerful for their own good. The balance of power is starting to sway over to the Leaf, and that's not good. So from here, what ends up pretty much going down is he ends up agreeing, and Itachi is at this moment still looking for Orochimaru, pretty much using his tracking, his Anbu skills to pretty much track Orochimaru down, and it ends up leading him to one of Orochimaru's hideouts. This hideout actually being the same one that Suigetsu is actually in. And when Itachi makes it in there, he ends up actually freeing a bunch of the people in there. And actually, freeing Suigetsu is one of them. Now, Suigetsu, when he sees this Uchiha, be like, "You're from the Hidden Leaf Village, right?" And Suigetsu would be like, "Cool, if I come with you." Itachi at this point is serious. He's like, "Yo, like, I'm kind of busy looking for Orochimaru." Suigetsu would tell Itachi that he can help him find him. And from here, Itachi would be like, "Oh, really?" And Suigetsu would be like, "Yeah, I can help you find him." So Itachi would be like, "All right then, never mind. I guess you're gonna help me." And from here, what would end up happening is Suigetsu would end up telling Itachi about other locations of Orochimaru's bases. But when they check them out, there's nothing. So with Itachi pretty much searching for Orochimaru and him not being able to find anything, I'm gonna skip over to the Chunin exams. Now, obviously, the Chunin exams is pretty much just going to be going down, but this isn't like the changes that happen in this part aren't significant at all. Like, I mean, they are, but they aren't at the same time. Like, I'm gonna keep it straight up 100 with you guys. Every single battle that happens in this Chunin exams, like little part, would go down just like it does in canon, with the only exceptions being Rock Lee doesn't get his leg crushed because Minato was able to save him before that, and Hinata does not end up getting hit just like in canon, and what else? Let's see. Naruto ends up obliterating Kiba, like just completely decimating him. Wolfang over Fang versus all 5 chakra natures. The Raikage's lightning cloak, a weaker version at that, but still the Raikage's lightning cloak. And the Rasengan, it's just not even a competition. Kiba gets obliterated. The guy that Sasuke ended up fighting in the original gets like stomped, because if unhealthy Sasuke, who was pretty much weakened, was able to take him down, just imagine a healthy Sasuke a lot stronger. Yeah, definitely able to take this man out very, very quickly. So with that, they all now have 1 month to train with, doing their own things. So during this 1 month, what would end up pretty much happening is, this is where I can actually start covering some things. Because what I see happening here is that Naruto pretty much using this entire month in order to train and learn how his Kekkie Genkai works. Because that's what Minato and Naruto pretty much ended up summing it up to. Probably just a Kekkie Genkai. So with Naruto pretty much just being like, all right, this is some sort of a Kekkie Genkai, I have to get used to this. He ends up pretty much using the entire 1 month, using his multi-shadow clone jutsu to pretty much replicate the feelings that he had before. And by the time that this month is up, Naruto would have pretty much ended up understanding 4 things. Number 1, Naruto has a certain area around him, like a certain invisible bubble that Naruto has full control over. Number 2, Naruto has the ability to rewind time and pull it forward on a person, meaning he can make them younger or older. Number 3, Naruto has the ability to pretty much stop people in time, like literally stop them from moving. And he can pick and choose who exactly he wants to stop. And number 5, Naruto can pretty much like go forward in time himself by, let's say, 5 seconds. He can go forward in time himself by 5 seconds. It's kind of like Hit's time skip, where he goes forward in time by like point something seconds. This Naruto actually goes forward in time by 5 seconds, which I think is pretty it's pretty substantial in the Naruto world, because if he had point something something seconds, I don't think he could make too much of a difference with that. But seeing as it's 5 seconds, I think that that is a pretty decent number to start off with. So yeah, Naruto has literally 5 seconds to play around with when it comes to his time skip. And with that said, I'm gonna take another break. With all that out of the way, I'm guessing many of you guys are like, but what about Jiraiya? What happened with Jiraiya? Well, the thing is, in this version of events, Naruto already knows Jiraiya. So of course Naruto was gonna end up training with Jiraiya. And you guys might be like, yo, ayo, pause, Zether, when did Naruto meet Jiraiya? Minato's alive in this version. So I think that it would make at least a little bit of sense if Jiraiya would have came by to visit a baby Naruto, just to say hi, you know, see his old student Minato, and pretty much see how the village was after everything ended up going down. I know he didn't do that in the original, I don't think. We never really got confirmation or not whether Jiraiya ever visited, but I'm just going to say he did in this version. And I'm going to also say he also visited when Naruto was about, let's say, 10 years old, right? He also visited when Naruto was 10 years old and ended up helping Naruto train to master a couple of jutsus that Naruto was working on at the time. So when it comes to Naruto and Jiraiya, Naruto's already built a little bit of a relationship with him. And now that he sees him and he's older, he was able to pretty much find out that Jiraiya was way pervier than he originally had thought. So with that said, the 1 month training arc pretty much is over, and Sasuke would have of course ended up using his time to pretty much train with Kakashi, using the shadow clone technique to pretty much make his gains go just completely insane. Like, his gains are just immaculate because of the fact that now he actually is able to use the shadow clones and speed up his progress exponentially. So this Sasuke is definitely going to be making a huge difference in the fight against Gaara. And you guys are about to see how this all ends up pretty much playing down. So the way that I believe things would go down in this version of events is pretty much obviously the day of the Chunin exam stuff would end up happening, and Naruto would pretty much end up making his way towards the arena. Oh man, oh my god, I really barely started off the next recording and I'm really already yawning. You'll have to see it. No, seriously though, Naruto would pretty much proceed to start making his way towards the Chunin exams arena, and obviously Kushina would have been like, good luck Naruto. Naruto would nod and pretty much make his way towards the Chunin exams arena. Now at this point, Naruto would be at the top of the arena overlooking everything, waiting for his name to be called with his fight against Neji. And when that happens, Naruto would proceed to use his time skip ability to fast forward about 5 seconds in time. As soon as the announcer says Naruto and Neji, Neji is pretty much nowhere to be seen, but Naruto just appears in the middle of the stadium with everybody being like, what happened? But Naruto is just standing there, and Neji, seeing this, would jump over the railing saying, so, you decided to show up. Well, I guess it's going to be quite the show when I put the 4th Hokage's son in the ground. Naruto would immediately smirk, saying, you don't truly believe you could do that, right? And Neji would say, oh, but I do. Naruto would say, you're really skilled at taijutsu, right? And Neji would say, and what if I am? Alright, perfect. Then that's what I'm going to be using to beat you. Neji at this point would have a smirk on his face and an angry expression on his eyes, as he would say, you dare mock me? You truly think you will have what it takes to defeat me with nothing but pure taijutsu? Naruto would say, I never said anything about pure taijutsu. All I said was I would best you at taijutsu. And Neji would say, I guess it's gonna be fun to put your face on the dirt for once. As he would say, looks like I'm gonna be the first one who does that, huh? Naruto would say, no, not the first, but it definitely won't get the chance to do it yourself though. As Neji would say, fine. And at this point, the proctor would say, begin. Neji would immediately scream, I'm gonna make you eat those words, as he would have rushed in at Naruto's direction. But before he knows it, Neji would feel the strike of literally like 50 blows on him before the battle even begun. And at this point, Neji would pretty much start stumbling backwards as he's like, what happened? But Naruto would simply look at Neji with a smile on his face saying, what happened to all that bravado from earlier? He would rush in at a stunned Neji and proceed to hit him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times. Once more, just obliterating this man. As Naruto landed all these blows while using his time skip ability consecutively. So he would use like 1 second, land 5 blows, another second, land another 5 blows, and once he caught Neji completely off guard, he just started obliterating Neji with hits after hits after hits, until eventually Neji was pretty much like airborne, and Naruto would then say Rasengan as he would smash a Rasengan right into Neji, causing Neji's body to pretty much be flung at the Chunin exam's wall, and Neji's body would just literally leave an indent and crack the wall. As at this point, Neji would say, huh, didn't land a single blow. He would proceed to pretty much use his same ability as he would walk forward, and in an instant he would appear right beside Sakura. Sakura would say, Naruto, how did you? And Naruto would hold his hand out saying the next match is gonna start soon, with Naruto thinking, come on, Sasuke. At this point, it would be about 10 minutes before Sasuke arrives, and then Sasuke versus Gaara. What a shaking! Oh God, these yawns keep sneaking up on me. And then Naruto, no, not Naruto, Sasuke, but Sasuke and Gaara, their match would end up pretty much inevitably coming down. And so, with that, Sasuke would arrive and say, sorry, I'm late. Look up at Naruto. Both of them would nod at each other in a sign of respect, and then the battle would commence. Now, the way that I would see this all going down is obviously it all goes the same, just like canon. Sasuke pulls out his taijutsu abilities, which actually ends up shocking Gaara. Rock Lee is in the stadium pretty much watching this and seeing as Sasuke mimics his movements, thinking, wow, Sasuke Uchiha truly is a genius. With my guy thinking, yeah, Kakashi, you made him copy Rock Lee's taijutsu. Kakashi would say, hey, I mean, I am the copycat ninja, right? And my guy would let out a giant amount of laughter saying, that's right, Kakashi. I'd expect nothing less from my rival, as he just smiles and has a thumbs up. And at this point, Lee is watching up like in a better condition. He's fully healed because, you know, he never had his arm or leg crushed. So Rock Lee's able to stand, but, you know, minor injuries still. And at this point, you know, Sasuke ends up pretty much seeing that Gaara pulls out the impenetrable defense. Now, when this happens, Sasuke would decide that he's gonna pretty much put the defense stopper right now, and he ends up pretty much whipping out a Chidori. Now, guys, quick thing, if you guys end up hearing like a random dog barking in the background, sorry, but my dog's going crazy right now, literally barking at who knows what. But yeah, that's out of my control. So as we continue, Sasuke would create a Chidori point blank. He's not going to be running all the way there to the top and then running back down. No, Sasuke would weave the hand signs and say Chidori, as he would immediately like pierce right into the sand dome, and Gaara would explode. As Gaara explodes, why do I keep yawning so much? I know I'm not tired, dude. I know I'm not. But am I just bored? I might just be bored. But as I said, Gaara would proceed to quite literally explode in a rage and be like, blood, my blood. And he would then basically proceed to partially transform, as Temari and Kankuro would be watching in utter fear, thinking, oh no. But from here, this is when we would essentially have everybody in the stage essentially pass out, as a bunch of people who were in the stadium would pretty much start melting, like their faces would start melting off, showing that a bunch of the people watching were really just sand shinobis. And at this point, a bunch of them would begin to pretty much attack a bunch of villagers, trying to pretty much overtake them, attacking a bunch of ninjas. Not only did a little partial part of the sand village come attack, literally more than half of it came. And so at this point, the Konoha Crush stuff is really on full effect. At this point though, Naruto would look at Sasuke and nod, thinking, I have to help someone else. And Sasuke would pretty much just be there thinking, yeah, don't say. But at this point, Minato, seeing everything that's going down, would think, Oh my god. And from here, it's at this point that the fourth Kazekage, Gaara's father, would pretty much appear, would pretty much smile and say that this is the end of the line for for fourth. But Minato would immediately say it's not, as he would appear behind the fourth Kazekage with a kunai and would not hesitate before he would slit the throat of the fourth Kazekage. As at this point, Orochimaru would reveal that, he was behind everything. And Minato, seeing him, would say, Hiruzen should have killed you when he had the chance. But I'm not going to be the one who does this. As immediately, Minato would drop a kunai on the ground, but he would teleport over to Itachi's location, grab Itachi, and teleport back in. As Itachi would immediately look at Orochimaru, and with such a serious expression on his face, he would say, Tsukiyomi. As from here, literally 72 hours would go by of Orochimaru being tortured non-stop and being reminded not to mess with his little brother. So, yeah, that happens. And from here, Itachi, after those 2 milliseconds would go by, he would see that Sasuke is currently fighting against a half transformed Gaara. So seeing this, he would think, okay, I gotta come down there and help. Naruto would do so as well, and at this point, everybody would pretty much be in an all-out brawl with the Sand Village. But due to the fact that I really don't know that much about the Sand Village, and I don't really know what shinobi they have to pretty much counter the Hidden Leaf Village, all I'm going to be saying is that the battle pretty much is a short one. Because if I'm being truly honest, the Leaf Village just has so much more to offer than the Sand Village. So yeah, I'm just going to be saying that they end up countering the Sand Village. Yeah, they end up pretty much beating them. Gaara is actually going to be taken care of. And yeah, that's pretty much how that ends up playing out. The village is pretty much saved. There was a relative amount of damage because of the gigantic snakes that Orochimaru summoned. But at the end of the day, the Leaf Village was able to bounce back from this. And seeing as they have all of the, all of the Uchiha clan members, the Uchiha were very, very, very useful in this, in this little spot. So yeah, the Leaf Village is just prosperous, to be honest. So what I'm going to be saying happens here is Tsunade is never searched after. And Orochimaru pretty much decides, I'm not touching Sasuke. Itachi's going to kill me. He's terrified. So he literally stops looking for Sasuke and decides he's going to go after a different Uchiha body or someone else that he can pretty much manipulate. So Sasuke never ends up having this run away from the village arc to gain power because Sasuke is happy. I mean, what reason does Sasuke need to gain power other than to pretty much beat Naruto? And he's not about to turn rogue or anything just to beat Naruto and prove a point. So yeah, I'm just going to be saying that Sasuke stays in the village, and this is where the 3-year time skip would begin. Except I don't think Naruto leaves the village this time. The village is prospering more than it ever has, and with an additional member called Suigetsu, the village is pretty much better than it's ever been in history. And everybody honestly just trains and gets stronger during this time, with Itachi actually being healed from his sickness by Naruto. He was actually able to reverse Itachi to back before he got the disease, and Itachi now pretty much got rid of the disease in and of itself, because Naruto's just going to keep reverting him back over and over every time he gets sick. So Itachi pretty much stays as he was taken back to the point where him and Sasuke are the same age. And I know that sounds a little strange when you take it at face value, but I think it's kind of funny. So I'm just going to be sticking with that. And so with that, I think that it's fine for me to pretty much explain what ends up happening during this 3-year time skip. During the 3-year time skip, literally everybody just gets more and more and more powerful. And the Akatsuki are still a thing, but Itachi's not part of the Akatsuki. And Kisame was never actually sent into the village to pretty much try to take over them. seeing as the Leaf Village is pretty much one of the most powerful like places ever, to take the Leaf Village down, you're gonna have to try really, really, really hard. So yeah. And so what I'm going to be saying is Naruto pretty much ends up mastering all of his time Kekkie Genkai abilities. At this point, Naruto's able to use all of them at will. And when he fights, the fights that Naruto pretty much partakes in are instant victories. He takes that up after his father Minato, where he doesn't waste any time. He doesn't waste seconds. He immediately gets to the point and gets things done. And that's pretty much why this series is going to be more of a quick one, because Naruto just is so overpowered. And that's really all I can say. Naruto was just a whole lot stronger than in the original. So with that said, I think that it's only fair to finally address the elephant in the room. The other three great villages or nations. They have become weary because the Sand Village pretty much got stomped by the Leaf Village. Oh, and by the way, the Leaf Village proceeded to do a full-on takeover of the Sand Village after the fact of everything happened. Or at least they would have, if it wasn't for the fact that they ended up making a peace treaty and the Sand Village ended up pretty much having heavy losses after that whole thing happened, because they lost a lot of their shinobi. But the normal villagers and like their economy and stuff like that, that's all fine. But yeah, they're pretty much the weakest like nation right now. So what ends up happening here is I believe that the rest of the four nations, other four nations, would end up being like, yo, the Leaf Village, way too powerful. What are we gonna do about them? And so they end up pretty much having like a five Kage summit, where what ends up happening is Minato and the rest of the Kage end up pretty much meeting, and Naruto's actually going to be Minato's escort along with one other person, Sasuke Uchi. No, I'm just kidding. Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi and Naruto are going to be Minato's escorts. So when they arrive, immediately the first person to speak up and be pretty, vocal about what he believes is Raikage A. He would slam his fist onto the table and say, "All right, Minato, we need to address the elephant in the room. Your village is way too powerful." And Minato would be like, "What are you talking about?" But the Raikage would be like, "Don't play dumb with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Your village has way too much power now, and it's creating an unbalanced power." Minato would say that he doesn't see the issue. It's not like they're causing problems for the other nations. But the Raikage is saying that no one village can have as much power as the Leaf Village does, and they're going to be having to end up like trading some assets or something like that, or else they're going to pretty much have to say something about it. And when Minato hears that, he would immediately get into a serious, big DADDY Chungus mode, as Minato would be like, "Is that a threat?" And the Raikage would get up saying, "It's a promise." At this point, Naruto would stand up and just proceed to blitz behind Raikage, as he would say, "If you threaten my father ever again, you won't live to breathe another day." And the Raikage would have shivers down his spine as he would say, as he would think, "He's the son of the Yellow Flash. Makes sense." And at this point, I'm guessing many of you guys are like, did Naruto ever learn the Flying Raijin? He did. Because it's good for like really far travel. Like he can mark things and like travel really far distances. So the Flying Raijin is just a very useful jutsu in and of itself. So yes, Naruto does learn the Flying Raijin. And so with that, I think what would end up happening here is the Raikage would be like, "Look, the village has too much power." And he would end up pretty much having a whole gender swap right in that moment. Now, it was at this time that Minato and the other great nations would be like, "No, the Hidden Leaf Village has way too much power." And, they would pretty much start bickering with each other. But it's at this point that Minato would just be like, "All right, like this is not happening. Like, we're not about to go into some war. If you threaten war, then I won't hesitate to kill all of you." And all of them would immediately be like, "It's not a threat, Minato." The Kage that has like, what is the nature that he has? Anoki. Yes, Anoki ends up pretty much like saying that, he will not stand for this. But it's at this point that Kakashi would say, look, we can come to an agreement. We're not going to be giving up any of our assets. We built those on our own. If you guys want, you guys can attack us. But what good will it do you? I know deep down you guys all know that each one of you Kages could single-handedly be taken out by all the three of us right here. So it's really up to you. If you want to attack us, then be our guest. But if this is all, then can we go now? And Minato would look at Kakashi saying, couldn't have said it better myself. At this point, Minato would look at them all with a serious expression saying, we can give you the Nine Tails. And all of the other villagers would be like, the Nine Tails? Who's gonna get the Nine Tails? They would immediately begin bickering over power, and Minato would then say, exactly. I was just trying to prove a point. Each and every single one of you guys is thirsty for power. If you guys had as much power as the Hidden Leaf Village had, you would each try to conquer other nations. How many times have we tried to conquer you all in the past 10 years? Yeah, I think this meeting is over. Minato would begin to walk away, and the Raikage would say, we won't stand for this. Minato would say, I know. And at this moment, Minato would blitz behind the Raikage as he beheads the Hokage. Like he takes his head off, bro, in like such a badass fashion. And then Minato would just tell Naruto that he can get out of there as he proceeds to throw kunai all over the air. And in such a badass fashion, Minato would kill all the Kage. He kills each one, all of them, like all of them. I'm sorry, I just love Minato. But he would slaughter all of the Kages that are there. And all the Kage are just like, you know what I mean? Like they're all just like, what? Like what just happened? You know what I mean? But yeah, that's pretty much how What If Naruto Had a Time Kekkie Genkai ends. You guys are probably like, but what about the Akatsuki? I'm not gonna cover a fight that's just gonna be there for like for no reason. Like let's be honest here. The Akatsuki don't pose a threat. Obito got clapped by Minato with one Rasengan. Naruto has an ability to stop time, meaning that Obito's phasing ability is pretty much rendered useless. Kisame, come on. Don't play with me. The Akatsuki literally doesn't pose a threat. Pain maybe, because he might be able to destroy the village and all that, and there might be a lot of like casualties, but at the end of the day, it's really an entire like peak Leaf Village versus the Akatsuki. It just doesn't work. And you guys can also be like, but the Great Nations would probably do something about, you know, the Leaf Village. I mean, they tried, but at the end of the day, they would lose. If you guys do actually want me to cover that, then I can make like an extra bonus part for this. If this What If ends up doing like extremely well, then I'll like make it an extremely convoluted, like I'll genuinely put time, effort, and thought, and I'll have it have ups and downs and like make it crazy if this video gets a lot of support, and I mean a lot. So that's gonna be like, let's say 3,000 likes, because I really don't want to do it. But yeah, if you guys really want it, then you know the offer's on the table. But with that said, that pretty much concludes What If Naruto Had a Time Kekkie Genkai. Hope you guys went on to enjoy today's video. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.